What is up? It is your friend, your homie. You all see him, Damian Howard here with another Village Talks recording. And sometimes when I have these segments, they are uniquely special for me because I have people who actually are friends of mine that I know. And not only is it about knowing these people, it's more so about knowing their impact and knowing how much they care about young people. For good or bad, y'all, for better or worse, I don't know. You take it how you will. I tell people all the time, it's like I got a general love for everybody. My faith system says that I'm supposed to love people, and I try my best to do that. But the people I rock with and the people that get my time are the people whereby we are building something together. So, in many ways, Jose Santiago is somebody that I've built with. It's somebody that I've had an opportunity to co-labor with, to be on a journey with. And Jose, man, I would just love for you to jump in there, say what's up to the village, and give an introduction of yourself.
Hello, everyone. Again, thank you, Damien, for welcoming me on the podcast today. I'm Jose Santiago, and I currently serve in Chicago as an assistant principal at CICS Northtown Academy. I lead systems around culture, data inquiry, equity, belonging, and student services. Um, Everything from discipline to attendance, instructional stewardship, instructional coaching. On top of that, I'm a father of two young children. I own and run a small home business, my Myopic Pokey Collectibles. Check us out on eBay. And before this work, I worked in the Illinois Department of Juvenile Justice for almost 8 years. I worked as a dean in various charter school settings and Chicago public schools, and that really shaped how I understand trauma and behavior and accountability and systems of community. I'm currently pursuing my doctorate in education at UIC, where this transformative leadership, not just to education, but to our social ecosystem, if you will, is really framing the work I'm looking to do for the next 5 to 10 years. But more than anything,
Mm.
this work is personal to me, deeply personal, because I grew up navigating systems within Chicago that didn't always see me fully. I'm committed to being the kind of leader, adult mentor who build systems where the students feel seen, they feel supported, but they're also held to those high expectations. So that's a little bit about me.
Bro, that's crazy work because again, like I know you, you know me, and and since I know you, I'm just like, man, this guy, you coming with your little professional jargon today, bro. It's like, I am future Dr. Jose Santiago, and I'm like, boy, if you don't get out of here. But anyway, it's just so amazing that these podcast segments, and it's something about the structure of these, whereas though I've known you intimately for 2 going on 3 years, it's pieces about your narrative and you just sharing for like 1 minute that it's just like, dang, bro, it's giving me more layers and a depth of just kind of insight and introduction all over again into who you are, bro. So, man, I already know this about to be off the chain because I'm already, you understanding, like getting to see you in a new light, which is amazing, bro. When I was trying to get my doctorate, I'm trying to think back about when was this? Oh yeah, I know when it was. It was like in 2011. I just had my daughter and I was trying to even take her to certain classes because my wife was early in her career. And what I thought, Jose, was that I still had the ability to do all-nighters because I'm like, okay, I'm teaching during the day. I'm trying to take some classes at some point during the evening and in the summers. And dag, like they want me to read 100 pages a night and do all of the things. When is that gonna happen? I'm like, oh yeah. When I was undergrad, sometimes I used to do all-nighters. I'm gonna do that. You understand? Bro, I lasted 1 semester and didn't really even last that semester in that program. So it got to be something that's driving you. It has to be something, a vision that you see 5 to 10 years post you getting that doctorate that's like propelling you to stick with it. Again, I had one young daughter and I was not able to sustain just because I wasn't built like that anymore in my 30s. Whereas I can do all-nighters and I had that type of energy. You're finding that energy. You're finding something deeper, Jose, that's leading you to stick with it. Talk to us about that.
Well, one thing, thank you, David, for sharing that. One thing that I could say is that my system of support lies fully with my wife, my queen, my best friend. If I didn't have her support, I would have not been able to sustain. And she knows my passion. She knows why I'm building, and the perspective and motivation changed to lead by example, not just for my kids, but it was fortified when my children came. And so, um, coming from a split home where my father wasn't present, left my mom when she was 13 months, and seeing the sacrifice she made as someone who dropped out of the first ever inaugural class of Roberto Clemente in Humboldt Park. She didn't finish high school, and seeing her navigate our life together kind of set me up to want more for my children when they were here. And so that solidified the motivation. The why I keep going is black and brown men are traditionally pigeonholed into very finite roles in local government and education, in business organizations, and every glass ceiling that was placed above me because, like you mentioned earlier, your voice is too urban, Mr. Santiago. You should really take a voice and diction class, Mr. Santiago, to effectively code switch with the masses.
Mm,
I'm saying that in jest, but every barrier that was placed in front of me was tied to the deficit framing of a Latino male in the positions of power and true social impact or organizational change. So that's kind of the two factors. Like, okay, I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna have every box checked. I'm gonna have the the foundational credibility within the field, and also I'm gonna maintain my professional reputation and the relational leadership and dynamic that I think me and you have leaned into. But yeah, without my wife being fully on board, I think I would not be able to sustain. I'm 32 credit hours in. I'm over a third there after this semester. I'll be officially an ED candidate where I start the writing and research phase for the capstone dissertation phase of the program. So I'm excited to hit that phase of my continuous learning and being a lifelong learner and
yeah.
showing young men and women what it's all about.
Dr. Goldie Muhammad, is that one of your profs, or do you know who she is?
No,
Over at
she
USC?
she there is that name rings some illustrious bells. She's
Okay.
one of the founding professors, and I believe she's a professor emeritus, if I'm not mistaken. But feel
Okay.
free to fact check me and put a blurb at the bottom if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Her work is used in our transformational leadership coursework, and
Yeah.
I've read
I
some of her
was in my
pieces.
grad program at the same time as her, and it's amazing to see her ascension.
Yes, so I haven't got to work with her personally, but there's some great professors at the UIC campus doing really progressive and research-based work for education. So I'm excited to be in that program.
You talk about how oftentimes systems, society, however we want to articulate it, could orient things towards black and brown people, might even specifically say black and brown males, from like a deficit perspective, what they can't do, who they won't become, what they're never going to show up as, right? And from said perspective, then might already kind of have some assumptions for who we are and again, who we can't become. So I want you to do two things, Jose. And I'm sorry for stacking, but the way my mind works in these segments, I'm thinking about so many different things, and my mind is going so fast that sometimes I have to ask two questions at once. So, and here's one of those times. So, first and foremost, bro, before you answer the second question, I want you, from the perspective of who you are, your lived experiences, to talk about the beauty and brilliance of particularly Hispanic or Latino, and correct however you want to talk about that or correct my language when you get into it. Like, how are Hispanic children in Chicago brilliant? What are some of the ways? And I'm asking for this emphasis because I got a lot of black people who show up on this podcast and they talk about slavery and they talk about all of the things which are powerful and important. And I want you to be very focused in how I'm asking you to answer this. And again, if you want to correct some of my language and hone in a different way, please do that. But then also, Jose, as a second part to the question, I also want you to speak to just kind of what do you believe is the biggest contemporaneous, like present day issue that's holding back, particularly Hispanic students from thriving in the way that they could and should in the Chicagoland area.
Thank you. So I'm going to approach that question broadly, and then I'll get more finite. The Latino excellence is something, it isn't something we introduce to our students. It's something that they're the experts in, and they're what they're bringing, the richness of their culture, their history, their language,
Hmm.
their music, their food. They're the cultural experts. And many Latino cultures, just like uh, many Black or African cultures, we come from generations of oratory history and learning and storytelling. And how does that show up in literacy in our schools? How does that show up in mentorship in our schools? How does that show up in leadership in our schools when generations of learning and generations of um, ethical moral compass creation and guiding has been oratory in nature. So knowing that they come in with a wealth of knowledge is the first step. And being willing as a leader to embrace the nuances and their genius and their collective beauty is something you got to lean into because you got to learn from the kids as well. And an example of this is the nuances that we've had in urban education, and not this role, my previous roles in the city, as the city of Chicago had an influx of newcomers to Chicago with the Safe Haven City. We had so many Hispanic and Latino families coming from Central South America, where societal norms and relationships with government was not, or relations with people in authority was not trusted, and they weren't using to have an advocate in a position of leadership, and then navigating their past lived experience and some of the trauma they had with government ran institutions or publicly funded institutions.
Hmm.
So recognizing that really taught me to, when engaging with families and kids, really lean into empathetic or empathic listening
Hmm.
because you have to recognize the positivity and brilliance in every student as a capable learner, as a productive member of society, as what they're bringing is an asset to the community. So if we go into the the natural excellence that we have in our schools, the joy, the vibrance, the natural leadership traits to motivate and mobilize others in our Latino kids, the the appreciation for the arts, the keen mind for science and math and and ELA,
Hmm.
once they find their groove and they find that right teacher or they find that right program, you see these students take off and create their own signature, their own flavor,
Hmm.
and they put a little sazon on it, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I love
So
that.
yeah, so I don't want to, and like I'm in a mixed family. I'm Puerto Rican, Chicago born and raised. My family's from Puerto Rico. My family on my mother's side is blended. We have a lot of they married into a Cuban family, so we have a lot of Cuban and Puerto Ricans on my side. My wife was born in Mexico and naturalized when she was an adult, so and then my children are 50-50. They're Puerto Rican and Mexican, so they have the best of both culinary, music, traditions,
Yeah.
and linguistically, my wife, she also has her bachelor's in Spanish, and she works for the state of Illinois Department of Human Services, and having those two lenses of framing to raise our children, I'm really excited to see the cultural nuances they gravitate towards and how they represent their pride, not just from being a Chicago-based family, because that's a big part of our culture and history when you're from Chicago, but also knowing the rich history of both sides of the family. And that's an example of our mixed race and our mixed culture kids from diverse cultural backgrounds.
Yep.
You can't just put a finite label, but there's beauty in every student who comes from a different background, regardless of Latino, Indian, Asian,
Yeah.
Malaysian, my current campus has 47 languages represented, and I
Wow.
learn from so many families and so many faith-based orientations where we can learn from everybody, and there is cohesion and there is community, and they can build together and grow together and aspire to do great things, get accepted to college together, celebrate one another. So I'm really excited to be in the place where I'm at now, but I'm also excited to take some of those observations and replicate it in future work as well.
It's so much that I would love to build on based on what you shared. Um, One of the things I think about that comes to mind, I don't know why this visual keeps coming in my mind. And even as I'm talking, I keep closing my eyes because I have a way that as I'm talking, certain visuals, it's almost like I'm watching a movie and I see kids sitting down with their abuela, who is a matriarch in the family. And not even like it's intentional, but just sharing some of the stories, sharing recipes. Let's go in the kitchen and just cook, things that are like native to where I come from, or what our family loves and has learned to love over the years. But then how young people have their way of taking those traditions, that oral, that culinary and linguistic history, and remixing it to their contemporary reality is just amazing. Bro, even going to the part of just the subtle nuances of you see a black person and or you see a Latino person, and like you got to understand there's layers and levels to this. Like we're not all the same. You as a Puerto Rican, you having that Puerto Rican lineage, I should say, and your wife having Mexican lineage, and bringing all of that together. Like you can't just clump that into just one reality. There are nuances to it, and the nuances are brilliant and beautiful. And the way that we find synergies and our kids navigate to certain aspects as they're doing their remixing is brilliant and beautiful. And we need to celebrate that and not lose that. And society, again, attempt to just kind of clump us into one. However, towards the end of all of the things you said, Jose, what you called out was the beauty and brilliance of the village, which is what this kind of concept here in this podcast is all about, and community. I want you to unpack that more. Why does that concept of village and or how resonate with you and stand out?
Yeah, so for me as a leader, I think I mentioned it's deeply cultural. Many of our students come from communities where resilience is valued, where collective responsibility is valued, where family is second to none, that concept of family. And I think the work for us in schools to recognize that is not to replace those conceptualizations or those contexts, is to honor it and find a way to align with it with respect and grace. So thinking about that, how it shows up in our students, their adaptability, their responsiveness, their responsibility, you hear so many of our students from Latino backgrounds wanting a part-time job, wanting to help with the siblings at home, wanting to further their bilingualism and their biliteracy and get that seal of biliteracy and that commendation on their diploma. You hear those values permeate through into their student work. And I think what's so beautiful is when the community learns to align and embrace those different voices and those different um, factions of people, we get to a place where we're building skills in our students and our teachers and our leaders where we're not just making them critical thinkers, we're giving them the ability to navigate different contexts and the ability to navigate different communities and be a representative and also be a contributing agent of change wherever they end up, whether it's post-secondary, vocational, they land in their career, they're willing to have that lens. And again, I'll go back to what we said earlier. The village is, we have to see its strength and recognize that, you know, the newcomers, they have a voice and it's not a deficit at all. And that's sometimes that mindset work is where uh, not everyone, but some people stay in a framing where, from Chicago being one of the most segregated cities in the United States, there's some resistance to accepting our children and their communities, despite, depending on the history and the pride of that neighborhood or certain assumptions community members will make about the new influx of children or families to certain communities. So something that I've been thinking about, and that's where I'm at right now, but I'm willing to build on it later. I know you have some follow-up questions.
Oh, absolutely. I want Jose for you to bring people into the relationship that you and I have together and just the beauty and brilliance of how like-minded folks don't have to think hard about finding ways that we can work together. So, I know you and I are a part of several collective impact spaces together. There have been opportunities where as you've invited me in to say, hey, Damien, this is something I'm thinking about. Let's think about it together. I would love for you, Jose, to speak to just one thing that you and I have done together to really personify this idea of village. How you, as now an assistant principal, but previously a director over a network, just kind of said, like, first of all, it had to be something with your mindset and your psychology to say, yo, if we invite the community in, we can make a much like more rich experience for these kids, and get out of our own silo and do that type of work. It's this guy over here and this agency over here, or these agencies that think the same way I do. So why in the world would I not talk to them and ultimately trying to find synergies? Jose, you've been somebody who not only has that mindset, but have actively tapped into the power of collective impact and mobilization again of village in support of students. Give us like one example of what that's looked like in you and I's partnership.
For sure. So I want to think about the problems that I was facing supporting that network in that role, and and then thinking about the historical context. In education, we always say it takes a village. It takes a village, but we weren't necessarily functioning like one. We were operating in silos. Teachers here, counselors here delivering interventions, administrators over here doing their thing, all doing important work, right? But we're not always aligned. And then that community advocacy, that community liaisonship was parsed together. The principal had a partnership, the counselor had a partnership, the teacher had this resource. And so, being someone who is supporting multiple campuses, I was looking for opportunities to align that work and give them a system or a framework or a model to to replicate across the network. So I know we connected in 2023 around the Love Your School initiative and some of the problems we were facing in one of our school communities. And I was able to join some of the committee work and hear the resources and opportunities and build a essentially a hyper local community of support that was willing to step up at a moment's call or to provide resources when we needed to provide access to certain opportunities and whether it's funding, grants, partnerships that our kids and families could benefit from. And most important thing to me that made me want to really pursue that partnership was regardless of the campus location, we were able to create hyper local systems of support for each school community for all those kids within walking distance, whether it was violence interruption, whether it was social services, advocacy, or case management, housing support, teenage jobs, out of school time activities, whether it was tutoring or SEL curriculum or s- participating in a study with Loyola or with Together Chicago or with SEL-Plus or Champs, we were able to and then also the neighborhood organization, communities and schools, like every problem when we activated the village of support model was able to be addressed in some capacity by community partners. And that partnership with the school leader, the, whether it was a dean, a counselor, or a principal who was able to navigate that partnership was beautiful to see. If I had to give one direct example, was our schools are neighborhood-based schools. They could take students from the entire city of Chicago. Some of our students have lived a life where they've seen trauma, violence, and they've also been raised to be really defensive and protective of certain values and certain things. And some of them gravitate towards systems of support that aren't necessarily the best system of support for them. And so when they navigate into another community where their uh, social organization or their boys isn't necessarily affiliated with, there was conflict for boys and girls. And that conflict was really community based. And finding levers to call upon that can go into said communities and talk to a key stakeholder in that community, whether it was a religious leader or a member of a street organization that turned their life around, that was able to apply the right pressure to our families or our children. They were able to help us focus on learning and supporting the whole child. Um, in the same context, opportunities came where our students received massive scholarships because of the partnership, because of the affiliation with Love Your School as early as fifth or sixth grade in our elementary school because of this partnership. Because it's not just about responding to the negative, it was about uplifting and supporting the whole child from that village mindset.
Hey, bro,
And
you
and
just
that was amazing. So I know I took a little long,
no,
but no,
it's all
I've seen it repeated. I've seen it happen repeatedly, and I couldn't just talk about one instance for sure.
yeah. Oh man, like I am I am a good orator, but I can be a terrible storyteller. And that it's just like we got so many amazing things going on that that how that's just zoomed in on me was kind of creepy. But anyway,
It was
so
something
many
you did with your hands. You were like,
yeah, yeah. We got a little Matrix type of situation. But anyway, we got so many amazing things going on. And sometimes, Jose, people like you and I can put our heads down and just get to the work in a way, whereas we're not always careful to capture the moments. And then to share with people like, yo, it's something brilliant going on over here that has the ability to be a model for more of what we should be doing. So the reason why I'm feeling emotional right now is you just gave me like the dopest commercial that I can think of having. Bro, I am going to take like that last 5 minutes, bro. I'm posting that junk everywhere and I'm be like, hey, y'all stop playing. We doing amazing,
"Mm."
transformative work over here. And if you don't believe me, believe Jose. So to advance the conversation, first and foremost, thank you for everything that you just said, bro. Again, like this is a conversation with my friend. So there's a different visceral feeling, a different connectivity that I have here, even beyond some of my previous sessions. So, bro, you got a magic wand. We're at that point in a conversation. How are you going to utilize said magic wand to bring about positive change that impacts young people and or families? And again, we've made this hyper local, so let's stick there in the city of Chicago.
Do you know this is also a therapy technique you just did?
I didn't talk about it.
Yeah. It's a solutions focused brief therapy technique. And that's
Okay.
how, so if it wasn't in my bio, my master's is in counseling.
Okay.
So, school counseling and that lens in terms of supporting the whole child and meeting their social, emotional, behavioral needs is also a key driver of my work currently.
Mm. Well,
So, in solution,
a big part of my work, Jose, is that I've been an SEL practitioner. So it's
yeah,
just like I don't have the master's degree that you have. I don't have, in many ways, the articulation. It's something I know and feel, bro, deeply.
yeah,
First and foremost, because there are state standards and I built curriculum from those state standards. But beyond that, it's just the experiential pedagogy. I've been boots on the ground for so long. Yeah, so I love those opportunities to be like, hey, dang, you know what you're doing. Got research behind it too. So no, I appreciate
yeah.
that.
Yeah, so SFBT, when you get a chance, solution focused brief therapy is one
Okay.
of the key levers to help youth identify goals. And it's just,
Wow.
you don't need uh, the the master's degree. This you could do with research, practice, consultation with other people who are really, really in depth. The reason I say that is because if you had a magic wand, what can you create? What beautiful things, and getting kids to frame opportunities or their future with this framing is something that works really well with kids
Mm,
trying to identify what would that look like? What would that
mm,
look like if you were able to change this circumstance? What would it look like? Give me, what would it sound like? What would it feel like?
mm.
So thank you. I just want to recognize that that's a beautiful question. And
You know
so
what? I'm gonna let you if you want to, but it's almost you
yeah,
don't even gotta answer the question
no, I got
because
it right here.
okay.
So in education,
Yeah.
there's so much red tape
Mm,
in terms of how schools are resourced, funded, specifically around supporting the whole child. And
mm,
so right now, we expect the school to do what? Meet the academic learning needs, to meet the social and emotional,
mm,
foundational skills, to address behavior,
mm,
to give them resources and advocacy, to ensure that they're doing all these things for post-secondary success and to be an active um, member of society and a critical thinker and a lifelong learner. But we also don't necessarily provide an ideal staffing
mm,
structure, or we provide too many barriers of access for these community-based partnerships.
mm,
Because you think about getting a vendor agreement with some of these local schools. Think about getting the background process checked. Think about having an S corp or LLC or your nonprofit organization registered in a certain registry. I think
Insurance, that's a big one too.
insurance, yes, liability, and is it aligned? And then also alignment, right? Like it's very rare that you find a organizational alignment, and then the personnel alignment to execute a vision or mission. So I would expand a access to mental health professionals, not just um, pushing into the building, but also their access to them digitally, virtually, and future proofing that service, and also norming, because there's a stigma around mental health. And I would also open those doors for families and give schools more flexibility in how to design supports, including the communities as as a pillar, a focal point of the design. And I know, that that community-centered pedagogy is out there and there's research, but how often are we able to do that with fidelity? How many times can we get the amount of community voice needed to really impact procedural change from a policy or even a school-based perspective? Because we might solicit for parent participation, we might solicit for community partners to come and engage in the process, but I feel like there's a lot of red tape that I wish we could make it real simplified. And we can't expect these massive, drastic changes without us doing some reconsiderations of systemic barriers of access. Because if an organization is out there saying, I have all these things, but we have to activate now, but there's a 3 month delay in getting the students approved, the media release signed, the consent from the parents. Okay, now we have to make sure they're on the vendor list. That bureaucratic process, I think, is something I would really, really love to address in supporting our kids.
You know,
Um,
I love that, but I actually, and I can say this to you because you're my brother and friend. I love your first answer. That really wasn't an answer even more because the first answer you gave, yes, it's a lot of red tape, a lot of bureaucracy, and things of that nature in the way.
Mhm.
And bro, if we can lift all of that, your and our lives, like the stuff we try to do would be so much easier, bro.
The
Like
impact on kids,
how
yes.
how you and I would be popping, just the two of us. Not to mention, like you say, some of the others you named, the organizations, it'd just be
Mhm.
like, boom, let's go get it. Like, let's go get it all for the benefit and sake of these kids. But bro, what you said was again leveraging that magic wand that elevates the voice and gives agency to young people.
Mhm.
Because at the end of it all, we could try to articulate what brilliance and excellence looks like, but when they have the ability to articulate that for themselves, it's just like, bro, why in the world are we not doing more of this? Why in the world are we not lifting up opportunities for them to be platformed, right? And look, here it is. They all have the ability to do it in their own quirky ways. And you got some who are a little bit more reserved and quiet and a little bit more methodical with how they talk. But once you get out of the like rhythm of rushing them, you got to say something right now. You got to say how, and just let them be themselves is going to be brilliant 100% of the time as it
Mhm.
pertains to just hearing from you voice and getting their perspective on things. Jose, unfortunately, you and I are at the end of this segment. I knew it would happen because we're friends and because we're boys. We went way over time, but I'm happy actually that we did because I think in affording us space and opportunity to develop the thoughts that you kind of articulated and share with us today, we really gave the viewing audience something special. What I want to do before we pause and stop this segment, Jose, is I want you to have the final word. If there is one thing that you want to leave youth development workers with, be it folks on the community level, folks in schools, even parents, just what comes to mind for you, bro, that you want to leave us with today?
Yeah, I think I'll build on your your summary. So glad to be here. Lots of fun reconnecting with you and chopping it up. And I want to say one overarching line. Our students don't need to be fixed. They need to be seen. And it ties into what you were articulating.
Yeah.
I think the core message for youth development workers, mentorship, leaders, principals, system leaders is every student is just one relationship away from a different life trajectory. Just one. And when I go back to my why of being the adult I needed when I was in school, it's our responsibility as educators, as leaders, as community activists to build these systems out that make those relationships possible because there is one relationship away from choosing a different path. And when we get that right, it's not just about impacting students, it's we're impacting families and entire communities. So that to me, I think summarizes like the core intent of this conversation.
Yeah.
And I think I'm excited to continue to build with you, but I'm also excited to see what you do
Mm,
with this work, not just with SEL Plus, but with MBK, Obama Foundation, Together Chicago, because um, you're setting that bar
mm.
and having colleagues and people to admire that you could actually work with is something rare. So I just want to give you your flowers and know that I'm with you in whatever we choose to do going forward together.
Man, I appreciate that. And for our guests who watch this, either my village that I rock with, Jose, now your village that's become a part of my village by way of us having this space that we're sharing together. One, again, just thank you for how you showed up today. I guarantee folks were one inspired and also educated as you were sharing all of those nuggets of insights and inspiration that you gave us. But I just got to call out, y'all, as my final word that Jose got to be the coolest brother in the city of Chicago. I mean, when he leaned back in that chair and he was giving his answers, y'all, I don't know. I felt something that just overwhelming rush of coolness just hit me. I'm not playing with you. So, Jose, thank you, bro, for showing up the way you did. Guests, thank y'all so much for watching this segment of Village Talks. And until next time, peace out. See y'all later.